Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel, MD, General Physician. Today we'll be discussing on another interesting topic for fourth year student, that is ischemic heart disease. Meaning is very simple. It is a disease which involves the heart and it is due to ischemia, means because of decreased blood supply to myocardium. So in general, when we use the word ischemic heart disease, it means decreased blood supply to myocardium, leading to ischemia. As blood supply to the heart is by coronary artery, it is also called as coronary artery disease. We'll be discussing under this common heading definition, etiology, pathophysiology, clinical features, investigations, differential diagnosis, treatment and complications. So basically myocardial ischemia means when the blood flow demands of the heart exceeds the blood supply to myocardium by coronary artery. We call that as myocardial ischemia. We know this coronary artery can be involved because of atherosclerosis or because of coronary artery spasm, we call the Prinzmetal angina or variant angina. And whenever this atherosclerotic plaque becomes unstable, it can end up with a rupture and then there will be formation of a thrombus, we call coronary artery thrombosis, or there can be occlusion of a coronary artery by thromboembolism. Other etiology which is other than atherosclerosis can be severe hypoxia or because of coronary anomaly. We'll be dealing separately in detail in etiology of myocardial ischemia. Yes, in good number of conditions, person can have myocardial ischemia without chest pain. Then we call that as asymptomatic ischemic heart disease. Acute coronary syndrome can end up with unstable angina or MI. And this MI can be STEMI, non-STEMI, or can end up with sudden cardiac death. There is one symptoms which can occur not in acute coronary syndrome, but because of atherosclerosis, stable plaque, we call as a stable angina, and hence myocardial ischemia or ischemic heart disease will include all these conditions, stable, and these three will be in acute coronary syndrome. We'll have one slide which will show you that. So ischemic heart disease we can divide into stable coronary syndrome, acute coronary syndrome. In stable, there is fixed obstructive coronary artery disease because of stable plaque that will give rise to what we call as angina or we call stable angina. And there is one more condition which is non-obstructive coronary artery disease, which can result into ischemic non-obstructive coronary artery disease. So it results into only ischemia, not infarct. That we call as INOCA. While acute coronary syndrome can be MINOCA, that is myocardial infarction in non-obstructive coronary artery disease, and unstable angina, and MI, which can be non-STEMI, can be STEMI. So this is an entire basket of picture of ischemic heart disease. You divide into two big groups, stable coronary and acute coronary. So ischemic heart disease can be stable, can be unstable, and what we call as acute coronary syndrome. But ischemic heart disease can also present as cardiomyopathy, conduction disturbances, congestive heart failure, sudden cardiac death, any one of these, or can also present as asymptomatic group. So it can be symptomatic, all these are symptomatic or asymptomatic. And in symptomatic we divide into two, stable, unstable, or we call stable coronary syndrome or acute coronary syndrome. And acute coronary syndrome you can divide into STEMI or ST depression, we call non-STEMI MI. So STEMI MI, non-STEMI MI. And this non-STEMI MI can be without elevation of troponin, without any myocardial infarction, then we call that as unstable angina. This unstable angina can go into non-Q wave MI or we call non-STEMI. And this non-STEMI can become STEMI. But STEMI can never be non-STEMI. This cannot get converted into non-STEMI. Non-STEMI can go into STEMI variety. Unstable can go into STEMI. Or unstable can become non-Q wave MI or we call non-STEMI. That is possible in unstable angina can develop STEMI or non-STEMI. But non-STEMI cannot become unstable angina or STEMI cannot become non-STEMI or unstable angina. Or sometime person can present as a sudden cardiac death. Any one of these. Now there is one terminology which is being added is called MINOCA. And that we have already shown you here. MINOCA term is being added. And that means person develops myocardial infarction, but there is no significant occlusion of coronary artery, more than 50%. That is called MINOCA. We'll be discussing separately. So some terminology which are utilized, angina, this is a symptom or person can be asymptomatic. We'll further discuss in detail in a separate chapter of angina, that stable angina, variant angina or also called as a Prinzmetal angina, vasospastic angina, angina decubitus, nocturnal angina, as well as some other groups. Second big group is acute coronary syndrome where there is an unstable plaque which can rupture. You can have a formation of thrombus and that can lead into unstable angina or also previously it was called pre-infarction. Sorry, R is missing here. Pre-infarction or crescendo angina. Or it can end up with MI. And in MI, if it is non-transmural or non-Q wave, also called as subendocardial or we label as non-STEMI. And if it is transmural with ST segment elevation, we call STEMI, and there will be appearance of Q wave MI. You can have without any symptom, we call as silent MI, or person can go into sudden cardiac death. And now there is one more terminology which is in an acute coronary syndrome, we call as a MINOCA. As far as a chronic coronary artery disease is concerned, secondary due to ischemic heart disease, it can go into a stage we call as a cardiomyopathy. Person can develop congestive heart failure, can have cardiac arrhythmia, or can have sudden cardiac death also. So any one of these presentation can be there also in a case of chronic ischemic heart disease. So these are some of the terminology which are very frequently being utilized in ischemic heart disease group. One we call angina, which is a symptom which is characterized by substernal or precordial pain which radiates to left arm, inner side, aggravated by exercise, relieved by rest and nitroglycerin, that is a symptom. We'll be having a full one lecture on angina pectoris. May radiate, may be associated with nausea, vomiting, diaphoresis, etc. Then there is an acute coronary syndrome, which is a spectrum of clinical conditions where mainly three are included: unstable angina, non-Q wave MI, or we call non-STEMI, and STEMI, which is diagnosed by ECG biomarkers, and you differentiate into three different groups. And now we have got an addition of what we call as MINOCA. So do remember, this is acute MI, myocardial infarction, where there is a necrosis of myocardium due to total occlusion of coronary artery. ST elevation, STEMI, we'll be discussing all this in detail in further lecture. So STEMI is elevation of ST segment with development of MI, where you've got a chest pain longer than 20 minutes. Some persons say that more than 30 minutes. There's a persistent elevation of ST segment despite of nitroglycerin. In limblets, at least 1 millimeter in adjacent limblets, or 2 millimeter in precordial leads, minimum 2 adjacent precordial leads, or there is a fresh appearance of left bundle branch block, and there is an evolution of a Q wave excluding left bundle branch blocks, enzymes elevation like CPK-MB or troponin or LDH, and echocardiography shows regional wall motion abnormality. Now there is one condition which is being added, that is MINOCA, that is myocardial infarction with non-obstructive coronary artery disease. The diagnosis of MINOCA is made immediately upon the coronary angiography in a patient presenting with typical features of acute MI. Means person fulfills all criteria of acute MI, that is symptoms, chest pain, ECG criteria by ST elevation, or there is an ST depression, we call non-STEMI. Enzymes markers are elevated, so MI criteria is fulfilled, enzymes criteria is fulfilled. But on an coronary angiography, there is a non-obstruction of coronary artery on angiography, where we say that coronary artery stenosis less than 50% in any potential regional arteries. So this particular meaning that coronary artery is narrowed less than 50%, defined as no coronary artery stenosis more than 50%. So it is less than 50%. And no clinical overt specific cause for acute presentation. When all these three criteria are fulfilled, we label that as MINOCA. So mainly diagnosis of MINOCA will be there after coronary angiography. Without coronary angiography, you cannot label that as MINOCA. And these are diagnostic criteria for MINOCA, that is acute MI criteria, positive biomarkers, then symptoms of ischemia, ST segment elevation or new LBBB, pathological Q wave, regional wall abnormality, and angiography wise, there is a clear-cut complete occlusion of coronary artery. While non-obstructive coronary artery on angiography will show you absence of obstruction and it will be less than 50%. And this includes normal coronary artery, no stenosis, mild coronary artery, stenosis more than 30% but less than 50%. So any one of this can be seen. Almost normal coronary artery means no stenosis, that is narrowing may be more than 30%. Normal coronary artery is no stenosis in more than 30%. No clinical overt specific causes for acute presentation. So there is no specific etiology for acute presentation. Then we label that as MINOCA. There is one more conditions which can be included and is included in ischemic heart disease is Queen's syndrome, or also called as hypersensitive acute coronary syndrome, or also called as allergic angina or allergic acute myocardial infarction, or also called as a microvascular angina, where secondary to hypersensitivity inflammation, there is acute coronary syndrome. Very frequently, there is a sudden allergic manifestation. Classical example like anaphylactic shock, which will have hypersensitive inflammation involving coronary artery, may lead to angina or even acute myocardial infarction. And then that is called hypersensitive acute coronary syndrome, or also labeled as Queen's syndrome. There is one more condition which is being described as cardiac syndrome X, where there is a typical stable angina exclusively or predominantly induced by effort finding compatible with myocardial ischemia. There is a coronary microvascular disorders on diagnostic investigations. Near normal coronary artery on angiography, and there is absence of variant angina, cardiomyopathy or valvular heart disease. Then that is labeled as cardiac syndrome X, where person will have a typical stable angina. Predominantly there is clinical evidence of myocardial ischemia, but on angiography there is no coronary artery involved or there is no obstruction, and you rule out variant angina, cardiomyopathy and valvular heart disease, then that condition is labeled as cardiac syndrome X. Similar way, there is a syndrome X in metabolic syndrome, but this is called as a cardiac syndrome X. Now, if we go through the etiology, we know that basically it is a coronary artery disease, which can be congenital or acquired. In congenital, it is secondary because of anomalous in coronary artery, like single coronary artery instead of right and left coronary artery, or both coronary artery, right and left coronary artery arising from a single cusp of aortic, or there is a total pulmonary great vessel, transposition of great vessels. Sorry, this is transposition of great vessels. Or there is a coronary artery stenosis which is congenital. All coronary arteries arising from pulmonary artery. In all these conditions, there will be ischemic heart disease. And this will result into, if it is severe enough, in a very early age, it will result into what we call as a coronary artery disease, which will end up with ischemia. Among acquired, atherosclerosis comes topmost on the list, where we get two varieties, stable plaque, unstable plaque. Unstable plaque can rupture at any time, can lead to thrombosis, and very rarely you get thromboembolism involving coronary artery. There is one more etiology we call as a coronary artery spasm, where there is an imbalance in an autonomic nervous system resulting into spasm of coronary artery. It is also called as coronary artery spasm or Prinzmetal angina or variant angina, or also labeled as vasospastic angina. Very rarely, syphilis, which involves the coronary ostium, can end up with a coronary ostial stenosis and can end up with an ischemic heart disease. And still further rare, vasculitis, say like SLE, which can involve the coronary artery and can end up with ischemic heart disease. Out of all this, the most common is atherosclerosis. Atherosclerosis can be stable plaque, unstable plaque. Unstable plaque is also called as a vulnerable plaque. This vulnerable plaque can rupture because of infections like H. pylori or chlamydia, And secondary to that, also this can rupture because of stress, mental stress, physical stress, etc. And once that plaque ruptures, there's a formation of a thrombus which will lead to occlusion of coronary artery. And coronary artery spasm, because of any precipitating factor or without even precipitating factor, coronary artery can undergo spasm, results into ischemia. And once the coronary artery reopens, spasm gets relieved either by rest or spontaneous or because of medications. Ischemia is relieved, ST segment elevation comes back to normal, and that is labeled as a Prinzmetal angina or vasospastic angina or variant angina. And this vulnerable plaque will end up into what we call as an acute coronary syndrome, which are three separate pathophysiology of unstable angina, non-STEMI, and STEM. This spasm will lead into variant angina. This is partial occlusion, unstable angina. This is a vulnerable plaque. And when it ruptures, complete occlusion, it will give rise to what we call as MI, acute MI. And if it occludes small vessels, subendocardial infarct, or we call as a non-STEMI, and when it occludes epicardial vessels, a big vessels, then it will lead to transmural infarct or Q-wave MI, or we call as STEM. The basic etiology of atherosclerosis we have discussed in a chapter of atherosclerosis, modifiable cause, non-modifiable cause. So I am skipping this particular slide. We have already discussed in a chapter of atherosclerosis. You can go through in a chapter of atherosclerosis. All these risk factors, sedentary lifestyle, diet, anxiety, stress, anger, smoking, hypertension, diabetes, and obesity, most common risk factors. Hyperlipidemia we have discussed in detail in chapter of hyperlipidemia. Go through at your leisure time. So we divide into two big groups, familial and acquired group. Familial will accounts for only 5% or we call primary, and secondary group will be 95%, which will include diet, diabetes mellitus, obesity, cardiometabolic syndrome, syndrome Z, chronic alcoholism, drugs like beta blocker, hydrochlorothiazide, nephrotic syndrome, chronic liver disease, obstructive jaundice, oral contraceptive pills, myxedema, etc. So this will be some of the common causes. This shows you the normal level, what you require, optimum level. If they are elevated, we call borderline risk, high risk, and very high risk. So after doing a lipid profile, you should try to identify the risk factors. When diabetes is combined with obesity, we call diabetosity, or we call cardiometabolic syndrome, or we call metabolic syndrome. As far as etiology of Minoka is concerned, there are two groups. One we call as a coronary etiology and non-coronary causes. In coronary etiology, one of the common is vasospastic angina, where epicardial artery goes into spasm. Coronary microvascular disorders, where there is a decreased coronary blood flow. Microvascular angina, microvascular spasm, coronary plaque disruption, spontaneous coronary thrombosis or embolism, and mixed obstructive coronary artery disease. But this mainly involving microvascular. And if there is a myocardial disorders like myocarditis, Takotsubo, or dilated cardiomyopathy or hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, or non-cardiac etiology like pulmonary embolism, renal impairment, stroke, sepsis, etc. All this will produce imbalance in supply and demand of oxygen by myocardium. So Minoka includes ischemic disease, plaque disruptions, coronary spasm, microvascular dysfunction, thromboembolism. But on angiography, it does not show you obstruction more than 50%. Then we call that as a non-obstructive coronary artery disease. And if it is associated with elevated troponin level and clinically chest pain and ECG shows elevation with troponin positive, we call as a myocardial infarction non-obstructive coronary artery disease, MINOCA. But there will be few other conditions where troponin will be elevated, like cardiac causes like myocarditis, Takotsubo and cardiomyopathy, which are non-ischemic, and there will be extra cardiac causes like pulmonary embolism, sepsis and stroke, where also troponin may be elevated. So you should rule out these two conditions if you want to label a person as MINOCA. So if there is an atherosclerotic plaque which disrupt or which becomes unstable and ruptures, and there is a formation of a thrombus, it will result into myocardial injury and may end up with acute myocardial ischemia. We usually call that as acute coronary syndrome, and may be associated with elevated troponin or may not be elevated with troponin. When it is not elevated with troponin, we usually label that as unstable angina, and when it is elevated with troponin, MINOCA, STEMI, non-STEMI. And reasons for elevation of cardiac troponin ending up with myocardial injury is because of reduced myocardial perfusion or increased demand. Reduced perfusion is because of coronary artery spasm, embolism, dissection, sustained bradyarrhythmias, hypotension or shock, respiratory failure, severe anemia that will reduce myocardial perfusion. While increased demand is because of tachyarrhythmias, severe hypertension. Also, you can end up with myocardial injury and elevation of troponin because of cardiac conditions like heart failure, severe congestive heart failure, myocarditis, cardiomyopathy, particularly Takotsubo, wrist vascularization procedures, catheter ablation, defibrillation shock, cardiac contusions, all these conditions where troponin may be elevated. And in systemic condition where troponin may be elevated like sepsis, CKD, subarachnoid hemorrhage, stroke, this comes topmost on the list. And then comes pulmonary embolism, pulmonary hypertension, amyloidosis, sarcoidosis, chemotherapeutic agent which produces myocardial injury, critically ill patient, severe strenuous exercise, etc. can also have a cardiac troponin elevated. We already mentioned decreased supply, increased demand. We have mentioned. In that we have not mentioned the etiology of cardiac tachyarrhythmias like thyrotoxicosis, even severe mental stress, severe anxiety, severe exercise. Pregnancy will also increase the demand. Drugs like cocaine, noradrenaline, adrenaline, ephedrine can also have increased demand. So same thing given cardiac, non-cardiac, decreased supply, increased demand. At your leisure time, you can go through. These are the etiology as far as Queen's syndrome is concerned, which is allergic manifestation involving coronary artery, like angioedema, bronchial asthma, food allergy, serum sickness, urticaria, idiopathic anaphylaxis, etc. Very rare exercise-induced anaphylaxis. And the drugs which are responsible can be antibiotic, analgesic, thrombolytic anticoagulants, contrast media, steroids, intravenous anesthesia, NSAID. There is a big list. And environmental factor like ant sting, bee sting, wasp sting, jellyfish, grass cutting, poison ivy, latex, etc. Shellfish, viper venom poisoning. This is a big list. Still, there are many which we have not mentioned here. Now, what is happening in an ischemic heart disease? In an ischemic heart disease, basically there is a difference between demand and supply. Supply can be affected because of decrease in coronary blood flow, either because of coronary artery atherosclerosis, spasm, or because of unstable plaque rupture and acute occlusion. While increased demand is mainly because of increased load on the heart, like tachyarrhythmias, severe hypertension, etc. Now, if this is imbalance, demand is more, supply is less, there will be lack of oxygen supply, it will end up with ischemia. There will be anaerobic metabolism leading to excessive production of lactic acid, and that lactic acid will stimulate the nerve supply, pain nerve fibers, and gives rise to stable angina. Typical symptoms we call stable angina. If coronary artery is narrowed more than 50%, the chances of anginal symptoms will be there whenever there is an increased demand. In some of the person, even with an occlusion up to 70% or 75%, 80%, still person will not have any ischemic symptoms. This we call as asymptomatic groups. But whenever there is an increased demand, person can have anginal symptom we call as a stable angina. When stable plaque becomes unstable and ruptures, you get a group of symptoms and signs we call as acute coronary syndrome, which will include unstable angina, STEMI, non-STEMI, MINOCA, and even sudden cardiac death. What is happening in a stable? The plaque is stable. There is a fixed occlusion of coronary artery. On increased demand, the person gets symptoms. In a patient with coronary artery spasm, there is a sudden spasm, total occlusion, sudden ischemia, person gets pain. Spasm is either relieved spontaneously or by rest or by drugs. As soon as the spasm is relieved, blood flow recomes. Person will have no longer ischemia, pain will subside. This is coronary artery spasm. But when there is a complete occlusion, there is no blood supply. Because there is no blood supply, no oxygen supply, and that will end up into necrosis of myocardial cells, and that we call as an MI, myocardial infarction. If epicardial vessels are involved, it can result into transmural infarct, and if a small vessels are involved, then it will end up into subendocardial portion of myocardium getting infarcted. We'll call that a subendocardial infarct or non-STEMI or non-transmural. These are the words which are being utilized. Or even there is one word on ECG, non-Q wave MI and non-STEMI. So this will be the presentation as far as stable angina and acute coronary syndrome is concerned. The most common artery which is being involved is left anterior descending, or we call as a left main artery. Right coronary artery involvement is 30 to 40% of the people, and left circumflex is in 15 to 20% of the people. While in 40 to 50%, LAD is the most common artery which is being involved. We have already told you that atherosclerosis, coronary artery spasm, etc. what happens? In some of the condition, there is a dissection of a coronary artery, secondary due to stress or because of infections, etc. And there is also decreased blood supply because of short diastolic period in person who develops severe tachycardia or tachyarrhythmias. Also, there can be impaired oxygen supply without a coronary artery involvement, like acute hypoxia, or secondary due to acute hypoxia can be because of, say, tension pneumothorax, massive pulmonary embolism, ARDS, severe massive collapse, etc., or because of severe hypotension and shock stage. Very rarely in severe anemia also it can end up with. Or there is an increased demand because of increased workload like anxiety, severe strenuous exercise, severe tachyarrhythmias, stress cardiomyopathy in all these conditions. We have already done this particular part. So there is an increased demand, decreased supply will end up with ischemia. If both these are equal, balance is maintained, no ischemia. So increased demand will be on increase in heart rate, increased contractility, increased preload, increase in afterload. And decreased supply will be because of coronary artery or regional myocardial blood flow. If it is reduced, it can end up with this particular will end up more with what we call as Minoka. And when major artery are involved, we call as a coronary artery disorders. This portion we have discussed in detail in atherosclerosis. So I am skipping over all these slides. At your leisure time, you can go through. This is early atherosclerosis. These are the different stages right from initial lesions, fatty streaks, intermediate lesion, atheromatous plaque, stable plaque, unstable plaque. And what will happen? We have mentioned all. So this is initial stage, stable, unstable. And what will happen? So in an unstable plaque, it will end up with unstable angina, non-STEMI, STEMI, and sudden cardiac death. And we should also add one more is Minoka. And in stable, asymptomatic, silent ischemia, and stable angina. This is advanced stages, stable, unstable, and MI. We have already discussed that particular part. This is same shown in a different picture. Initial stage, asymptomatic plaque, occlusion, stable, stable angina, unstable. Now person will start developing unstable angina, small blood vessel occlusion, non-STEMI, complete occlusion, STEMI. Same thing shown in another pattern. At your leisure time, you can go through. Secondary to now disruption of the plaque, etc. What is going to happen? We'll take this. Plaque rupture, hemorrhage, vessel lumen will be narrowed, release of tissue factors, activation of coagulation cascade, formation of thrombus, subendothelial collagen is exposed, platelet activation, platelet plaque formation, then it will end up with thrombosis, turbulent blood flow, activation of platelet, again thrombus formation. There is an endothelial dysfunction, decreased vasodilatory effect, vasoconstriction, and that can also stimulate thrombus formation, antithrombotic effect because of endothelial dysfunction, and that will also end up with coronary artery thrombosis. And once there is a occlusion, it will lead to necrosis, and secondary to necrosis, now LV dysfunction will take place, LV dilatation, which will have pump failure, and person can die. Because of LV remodeling, electrical instability, and person can develop cardiac arrhythmia and can have sudden cardiac death. Any one of these can happen. So atherosclerotic, narrowing of the lumen, ischemia, complete occlusion, myocardial cell death, and once there is a cell death, troponin elevation, CPK-MB elevation. Secondary to inflammation, you can have even fever, decreased contractility of the myocardium leads to failure, and person can develop oliguria. Because of occlusion, anaerobic glycolysis, excessive lactic acid production, irritation of myocardial nerve, pain. And that pain will radiate towards the shoulder because of the same dermatome supply. Because of stimulation of vomiting center, nausea, vomiting. Sympathetic stimulation, release of catecholamine, tachycardia. And diaphoresis, cold clammy extremities. These are associated symptoms. Nausea, vomiting, tachycardia, cold clammy extremity are associated symptoms in case of acute MI. And chest pain, or you can see here that this goes to the same dermatome, so this becomes a referred pain. So person will have a pain in a precordial region as well as radiating to left arm, mainly on the inner side, up to tip of the little finger, and may radiate to the shoulder, may radiate to the neck, till angle of jaw, also may radiate up to back, intercostal space, paravertebral areas, and down up to xiphisternum. So nausea, vomiting is quite common. Fever may be there, secondary due to inflammatory process. Because of sympathetic stimulation, perspiration, tachycardia. Person can develop hypotension, decreased cardiac output, oliguria, dyspnea. Now, if a person has got a very good collaterals, in spite of this occlusion, because of a good collaterals, symptom signs may alter, and that will happen in good number of people. And we sometimes label that as silent infarcts. We already mentioned all this. And in complications, depending upon the severity of the damage, sudden cardiac death, conduction disturbances, secondary to necrosis, rupture of interventricular septum, rupture of left ventricular wall, rupture of papillary muscles, etc. And in a late stages, congestive cardiac failure, aneurysm formation, conduction disturbances, cardiomyopathy, thrombus formation, mural thrombus, thromboembolism. We'll be dealing in detail in myocardial infarction chapter. Clinical presentation can be asymptomatic, usually in a person where the obstruction is less than 50%. Stable angina is the most common presentation. Second common is acute coronary syndrome, which will include unstable angina, non-STEMI, STEMI, and sudden cardiac death. Clinical presentation will be same in almost all these three. Mainly you differentiate by ECG and cardiac biomarkers. Good number of people will present as a congestive heart failure, and when you investigate you find out that it is secondary due to ischemia or coronary artery disease. Some person can present as a cardiomyopathy, mainly in the form of a dilated cardiomyopathy. We call ischemic dilated cardiomyopathy, quite common. And some group of people can present directly as a cardiac arrhythmia and occasionally as sudden cardiac death. This slide we have already shown you before, so I'm skipping over this. These are the different ways of presentation. Silent ischemia means person do not have a clinical symptoms, but on routine checkup, you demonstrate that the person has got ischemia without chest pain, like while doing a stress testing or Holter monitoring or routine ECG checkup. Classical angina, precordial pain lasting for 5 to 10 minutes, sharp heaviness in the chest, choking sensation, severity wise mild to moderate, very rarely severe, radiates to left shoulder all along the inner side of the arm up to little finger. It can radiate to right shoulder, it radiates to jaw, throat, retrosternal, epigastrium, or may radiate to interscapular region, paravertebral region on the back side. It is aggravated by anxiety or exercise or after heavy meal or on exposure to cold. It is relieved by rest or by coronary vasodilator like nitroglycerin or sublingual isosorbide dinitrate. It may be associated or may not be associated with nausea, vomiting or diaphoresis. That is typical stable angina, or we'll call angina pectoris. Stable angina, angina pectoris, or it is also called as typical or effort angina. Whatever we have discussed before is shown here in pictorial way also. Substernal pain, character of the pain can be pressing, squeezing, strangling, constricting. We'll be discussing again in angina chapter. So these are the different description what the person gives. This is heaviness in the chest, someone is compressing, squeezing sensation, radiation, typical Levine sign, radiates to left shoulder, all along the inner arm up to the little finger, to the neck, jaw, right up to TM joint. It can radiate retrosternal, right up to xiphisternum, and posteriorly interscapular region we call paravertebral region. So all that can be radiation. Duration is 5 to 15 minutes, aggravated by exercise, emotion, heavy meal, exposure to cold, and relieved by rest and nitroglycerin. This is the difference between the four: stable, unstable, STEMI, non-STEMI. We'll be repeating again in other chapters. That stable angina will have an exertional pain, while unstable, STEMI and non-STEMI will be at rest. Stable will be relieved by glyceryl trinitrate, while unstable, STEMI and non-STEMI not affected. In unstable may be partial relief, not complete relief. Enzymes will be elevated in STEMI and non-STEMI, while it will be normal in stable and unstable angina. ECG is usually normal in stable angina. Very rarely it will show you T wave changes. Unstable angina will have a ST depression, which will be persistent ST depression. While in STEMI it will be ST elevation, while in non-STEMI there will be ST depression. ST depression more than 2 small square with elevated troponin or CPK enzymes. Now there is always a dilemma to differentiate between angina and non-ischemic groups. Very easy, we have discussed in a chapter of chest pain previously. At your leisure time you can go through. Suggestive of angina, usually the pressure is dull aching pain, crushing pain, heaviness, suffocating sensation, etc. While in case of a non-cardiac pain, usually it is a sharp or stabbing variety. This is between 10 to 15 minutes, while this is for hours. Onset gradual, while this is rapid. This is on exertion. There is no local tenderness. No local tenderness. The distribution wise precordial, substernal, and radiates to the typical sites. While this is pinpoint, there is a local tenderness. This is aggravated on exertion or an activity, while this will be more with movement of the chest wall, breathing, cough, etc. Autonomic symptoms are usually present in the form of tachycardia, profuse perspiration, nausea, vomiting, etc. While in usually non-cardiac, there are no symptoms like nausea, vomiting, profuse perspiration, etc. In Kuinis variety, there are three variants: type 1, type 2, type 3. In type 1, it is with normal coronary artery. Type 2 is with pre-existent atherosclerotic coronary artery. And in type 3, usually it is with coronary artery stent thrombosis. So we are not going into detail, but this is secondary due to allergic manifestation. Most common is anaphylactic shock. Now, evaluation of the chest pain we have done in a symptomatology of chest pain evaluation. So I'm skipping over this. Investigation, what we commonly do in an ischemic heart disease is chest x-ray to rule out non-cardiac groups and to see the size of cardiac size, pulmonary congestions, symptom signs of failure, etc. ECG will help you to differentiate between non-STEMI, STEMI and other group of ischemic heart disease. Echocardiography will help you in an acute MI also, where it will show you regional wall motion abnormality, RWMA. So regional wall motion abnormality will be seen in that. Also it will help you to rule out other groups which can produce chest pain as well as elevated troponin, like stress cardiomyopathy, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, myocarditis, etc. Valvular heart disease, congestive heart failure, all those can be picked up by echocardiography. Stress testing is done usually in a case of a stable angina to confirm the diagnosis. It should not be done in a person with an unstable angina, or we call it acute coronary syndrome. Troponin, CPK-MB and LDH1 is very important. By and large, the troponin I is most important, which gives you a very good idea regarding a myocardial necrosis or myocardial injury. It is elevated in the cardiac groups as well as the non-cardiac groups. Again, in cardiac group, it can be non-ischemic, ischemic. We have already told you in a non-ischemic groups like myocarditis, stress cardiomyopathy, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, severe congestive heart failure. In the non-cardiac groups like pulmonary embolism, massive pulmonary infarct, CKD, etc., where troponin will be elevated. But in an ischemic heart disease group, it will help you to differentiate STEMI, non-STEMI from unstable angina. And also it will help you to pick up MINOCA. And MINOCA will be differentiated from STEMI, non-STEMI by coronary angiography. Serum lipids, electrolyte, CRP, hsCRP and homocysteine level are done to find out the risk factors. Thallium scan, thallium stress scan, these are done to find out the viable myocardium or non-viable myocardium. PET scan is also utilized for that purpose. Cardiac catheterization is usually to find out the occlusive, non-occlusive groups. So MINOCA will be differentiated by doing angiography, and that is combined with, by and large, with MRI or with CT angio or MRI angio. Echocardiography with exercise or echocardiography with, we call as a stress scan. Stress echocardiography is usually done to identify ischemic heart disease group. There is also one test which is done by using dobutamine. It is called dobutamine stress echocardiography. That is also useful to find out ischemic heart disease group. Coronary artery calcification is usually to find out the atherosclerotic involvement of coronary artery. There are now what we call as a cardiac scan which are being done, which are mainly what we call as using radioisotopes materials. Coronary artery angiography combined with MRI becomes the main pillar for ruling out obstructive and non-obstructive coronary artery disease. So by doing all this different investigation, you should differentiate between stable angina and acute coronary syndrome and MINOCA. So this is all that big list you can go for depending upon the clinical setting. So by and large, the initial investigation is ECG, followed by cardiac biomarkers along with other tests like CBC, urine, renal function, liver function, lipids, amylase, CRP, hsCRP, etc. Chest X-ray mainly for finding out the cardiac size, presence of failure or not. The other investigation like 2D echo, stress tests, angiography, all those are to find out the severity of the damage and the severity of involvement of coronary artery. ECG is main important. We have discussed in detail in an ECG in an ST segment. So at your leisure time you can go through. I've already uploaded those videos in my YouTubes. We'll be discussing in detail regarding a myocardial infarction, what are the clinical findings, what are the findings in ECG, what are the findings in what we call as a cardiac biomarkers. Troponin will be elevated, CPK-MB will be elevated, LDH1 will be elevated, myoglobin is not done, but still that will be also elevated, and person will have a typical Levin sign. So these are all the biomarker. What will be the duration of abnormality, peak value abnormality and duration. The CPK-MB will be for 2 to 3 days, while myoglobin will be for 1 day. Troponin will be from 3 to 5 days. Usually we do troponin I, so it is for 3 to 5 days. So this is the most common investigation which is being done. Usually we don't do AST. We do troponin or CPK-MB, and this will be elevated in 3 to 8 hours, while troponin will be also elevated from 3 to 8 hours, and peak value of abnormality will be maximum between 24 to 48 hours, while this will be within 24 hours. But it will wear off little early as compared to troponin. These are the ECG changes which can take place. I am skipping over all this. We have done in discuss in detail. One, I would like to show this. Say a person develops an acute chest pain, and when you take an ECG, it shows you ST segment elevation. This could be STEMI, or this could be one another condition. Differential diagnosis is variant angina. Within short period, after giving rest or after giving a coronary vasodilator, if the pain is relieved, and if you take an ECG, it shows you absolutely normal, the person is having variant angina. So tracing was taken after 30 minutes. Patient was pain-free, asymptomatic, and you can see that ST segment has come back to isoelectric, and troponin was negative. That means variant angina or Prinzmetal angina, or we call vasospastic angina. Stress test is mainly useful in a case of stable angina. It should never be attempted in a acute coronary syndrome. So stress test, if there is a fresh appearance of STT changes, it will be in favor of a positive reports. So initially if there are no ST changes, but after exercise, if there is an ST changes, you can see there is a clear cut ST changes that suggests that person is having ischemic heart disease. Then you can go for angiography, dobutamide stress test, etc. This is PET scan. You should not attempt exercise testing. I have already told you. Unstable angina or impending acute stroke, acute MI, acute myocarditis, pericarditis, severe systemic illness, severe aortic stenosis, congestive heart failure, severe hypertension, uncontrolled cardiac arrhythmias. Don't attempt TMT. Coronary angiography, blood test we have already mentioned. So angiography will give you an idea regarding the severity of blockage, site, number of artery involvement, etc. And chest X-ray showing you cardiomegaly suggests more in favor of ischemic heart disease, but you should also rule out valvular heart disease, cardiomyopathy. Nuclear testing, isotope scanning, etc. Holter monitoring will also help you. MCOT is also one of the helpful things, because when a person gets a chest pain, if ECG is referred immediately to the cardiac center, acute episode can be diagnosed. Ergonovin test is one another test which is helpful to identify coronary artery spasm. Cardiac catheterization will be helpful to find out the amount of involvement of the ventricular functions, ventricular chamber. So coronary angiography is very, very helpful. Primordial prevention, primary prevention, secondary prevention, and tertiary prevention. So as far as ischemic heart disease is concerned, primordial prevention is better than primary prevention. Primary prevention is better than secondary, because once the person becomes symptomatic or he gets a damage to myocardium, and now usually you end up with a damaged myocardium, and tertiary prevention is absolutely bad. And now there are recent advances which are going on in different management of ischemic heart disease. By and large, the complications which includes in ischemic heart disease, that is person who are asymptomatic become symptomatic, stable angina will become acute coronary syndrome, and in acute coronary syndrome, unstable angina can become STEMI or non-STEMI, and STEMI non-STEMI can end up with sudden cardiac death also. So I end my lecture here. This is introductory part of the other portion in ischemic heart disease. We'll be discussing separately as angina, stable angina. We'll be discussing under a separate heading of acute coronary syndrome, which will include unstable angina, STEMI, non-STEMI, etc. And even we'll have a short lectures on MINOCA.